Greetings. I was going through some of my notebooks. I have attended for many years the All and Everything conference, and it's in different places every year, run by various Gurdjieff people. It's why it's normally alternates between Europe and the USA, but the last few years it's had to be online, obviously, because of the shit show that's been going on. And I was going through my notebooks anyway, looking at some of the notes I took, which were quite random. And I came across one line where it said, slugs in the old days, in olden tongue, means lazy people. And I thought that was quite interesting, since Hussein, Beelzebub's grandson, refers to us as slugs. And we are lazy people, aren't we? It takes a lot of effort to do this kind of work. Most people are far too lazy to want to do it anyway. So I was having a little read through All and Everything, and I came across this piece that's in the Beelzebub in America chapter, which is a very long chapter, so I'm not going to do it all, but I'm going to do a little bit of it where he's talking about seats. And I'm obviously sitting comfortably in my chair, and hopefully you're all sitting comfortably ready to hear this. So he's been talking about America and the state of America, the state it's in, and not just the states of the country. And he's saying, he was talking about toilets, water closets. And he says, this was precisely during the period when the chief center of culture for the whole of your planet was the country Tiglathmish. And when this country was experiencing the height of its splendor. So he's going back into the olden days now and just recounting some of our, ancient history. For this being function, the beings of the country Tiglathmish invented something rather like these American comfortable seats. And this maleficent invention also spread widely everywhere among all the other beings of that ill-fated planet. We've got to remember that inventions come and go, and the few that do remain normally are ones that have spread across the planet and have been hopefully useful to us. Like the internet was probably the latest big craze, and before that was sliced bread or something. Fads come and go or get improved or change over time. But quality inventions, I wouldn't say stay exactly the same, but they stay with us, don't they? Because they've been useful. So he says, if this said invention of the beings of the Tiglathmishian civilization were compared with the invention of these contemporary Americans, then, according to the expression they sometimes use for comparison, the latter may be called a child's toy. The beings of the Tiglathmishian civilization invented a certain kind of comfortable couch bed, which could be used for sleeping as well as for what is called lounging, so that while lying on this wonderful contrivance, and without manifesting the slightest being effort whatsoever, they could perform this same inevitable being need for which the contemporary beings of the continent America have invented their seats of ease. And you might have one of these seats. I know many people that have the old chairs that you can press a button and the front comes up so you can rest your legs and the back reclines a little bit. I don't have one of them. I've just got a solid, stiff chair, which I find quite comfortable. Got lots of cushions to keep me comfy. But I would like to put my feet up now and then. I usually use a stool. Anyway, he's explaining about this chair. These wonder beds were so adapted for this purpose that a lever by the side of the bed had only to be touched lightly to enable one instantly in the bed itself to perform this same indispensable need freely, and of course very cozily, and also with the greatest, so to say, chic. So the Tiglathmishian ones were like the beds, and I kind of visualize them ones that psychiatrists use, like Freud, with the, I forgot what they're called, maybe chaise longue. So they're lying down, but the bed can lift up. So they're lying along there, and the bed can lift up, and they can be in a seated position. It will not be superfluous, my boy, for you to know also, by the way, that these famous beds had the effect of causing great and sometimes momentous events in the process of their ordinary existence. So long as the previous relatively normal system still prevailed among the beings there for the said being functions, everything went along very peacefully and quietly. But as soon as certain what are called power-possessing and wealth-possessing beings of that time had invented for this purpose the mentioned comfortable beds, which came to be called, if you wish to enjoy felicity, then enjoy it with a bang, there then began among the ordinary beings of that time that which led to the said serious and deplorable consequences. So they've got these lovely comfortable beds. What a great name for them. Yeah. If you wish to enjoy felicity, then enjoy it with a bang. Well, everybody wants to have a bit of felicity in their life, and what better with a bang, eh? Off we go. Woohoo! We need to make the most of our lives. It is very important to enjoy our lives at the same time and try and be lucky. Do we make our luck, or does luck come to us? Maybe check out my interview with Alex Monk about that and his book that he's written, which was called, I've got it just over there. What was it? Now I've forgotten. Trauma and the Supernatural in Psychotherapy by Alex Monk. Did a little interview with him, good friend. You know, do we make our own luck? Are we cursed? Or is it something that we can work upon to make our lives better for ourselves? Surely this is why we're doing the work, so that we can have an inner peace. And even if everything does keep going tits up, as they say, we've got a better understanding of why and can cope with it in a much more better way. Anyway, I must tell you that it was just during these years when the beings of Tiglathmish were inventing these wonder beds that this planet of yours underwent a common cosmic process of Chirnooanovo. That is to say that concomitantly with the displacement of the gravity center movement of this solar system in the movement of the common cosmic harmony, the center of gravity of this planet itself was also displaced. So a bit of a catastrophic event going on. Did it affect everyone? I do sometimes wonder if this is the swinging of the north to south poles that people often talk about, the magnetic poles switching round. Is that what Gurdjieff's talking about here? But anyway, whatever it is, it caused a displacement in not just gravity, but in people's solar plexuses, I believe is what he's saying here. It made a discomfort within one. Let me just go on so I can be clear about what he's saying. During such years, as you already know, thanks to this cosmic manifestation, there increases everywhere on planets in the psyche of the beings inhabiting any planet undergoing Chirnooanovo a Blagonorian sensation, or as it is otherwise called, remorse of conscience for one's past deeds against one's own convictions. And I wonder if this is what we're going through now. I feel like we're having a big change in the world. People are waking up in some places. Many people are too scared to wake up and want to go back to sleep again, which is sometimes what holds evolution back, because people don't like change. And doing the Gurdjieff work helps us to adapt to change. And we've got to remember that the masses, few of them want change. They like things to be the same every day. They do the same things and it's, you know, all repetitive, but they feel safe and secure in it. So they're never ready for when something odd happens, or, you know, something comes out of the blue, it kind of knocks them sideways. But by doing the Gurdjieff work, we're preparing ourselves for that kind of thing, or we are more prepared when that kind of thing happens to us. But when a worldwide calamity like this happens, or what's happened in the last few years, very few people are prepared. It shocks many people into doing something about themselves. It also makes a lot of people retreat into themselves and go, what's happening? But he's talking here about this remorse of conscience, which is a very important part of dealing with the Gurdjieff work. We need to go through that phase when we're doing the Gurdjieff work. And I have noticed in the last couple of years, because of the shit show of the beginning of this decade, it did make a lot of people re-evaluate their lives and re-look at what they've done, obviously a lot of thinking about the past and what they've been through and what they've done to others or what's happened to them. But by doing the Gurdjieff work, when we're doing that, we have to learn to be impartial and help it along in a way that it helps us to develop ourselves, to help our centers work more efficiently. Where people that are not prepared for this kind of thing, it can cause a big upheaval, as he's saying here. But there on your planet, thanks to the common presences of your favorites having become so odd from a variety of causes, both proceeding from outside of them and arising through their own fault, the result of the action of this common cosmic actualization does not proceed in them as it proceeds in the presences of the free brain beings arising on other planets during Chirnooanovo. That is to say, instead of this remorse of conscience, there usually arises there and become widespread certain specific processes called the reciprocal destruction of microcosmoses in the tertatocosmoses, which processes, when proceeding in them, they themselves look upon as what are called among them epidemics, and which in ancient times were known by the names Kalumnon, Mokrok, Saudanuno, etc., and in present days by the names Black Death, cholera, Spanish influenza, and so on. So what he's talking about here is that, you know, when people are not proceeding properly with the Chirnooanovo, if we're not processing it properly, we create like a maleficent occurrence happens across the planet. Plagues is talking about here. And I have noticed, you know, every 400 years there does seem to be a plague. Well, maybe we're not, while we're still in this lunatic asylum, is because we're not developing ourselves properly when this Chirnooanovo event occurs. And instead, only a few of us manage to ride with it, whereas everybody else is not riding with it and not developing themselves. And it creates plagues, as he's talking about here, like Black Death and flu and such like. And maybe that is what has happened since 2020. We had this, you know, many people talked about that after 2012, the planet is going through a new kind of cycle. The 2012 was the beginning of a cycle. It's the end of an old cycle, beginning of a new cycle. But with that comes a lot of change, and will probably be a lot of energy changes around the planet. And if we're not flowing with it, then that will bring forth, as Gurdjieff's saying here, maleficent forces. Let me continue. Well then, thanks to the fact that many of these diseases, then called Kobana, Turdianok, Moya Osul, Champarnak, and so on, and called by contemporary beings, today's people, tabes, sclerosis, dysamentia, hemorrhoids, ischias, hemiplegia, and so on, were widely prevalent among the majority of those using these exceedingly comfortable couch beds, those beings from among them in whose common presences the data for Hasnas-Mussian properties had, thanks to the complete absence of the actualization of being part dog duty, already previously began to be crystallized more intensively than usual, and among whom were those called revolutionaries, observing this particularity, decided to take advantage of it for their own purposes. That is to say, types of this kind invented and circulated, broadcast among the masses of beings at that time, that all the aforesaid epidemic contagious diseases resulted from the fact that, thanks to the beds, if you wish to enjoy felicity, then enjoy it with a mighty bang. The parasitic bourgeoisie contracted various diseases, which diseases afterwards spread by contagion among the masses. A lot to take in that paragraph. Obviously, it'd be interesting to understand why Gurdjieff called the ancient diseases all these different names, like Kolbana, Turdianok, Mosh Osal. You know, where was he coming from with those words? There's something in them, and I like to try and find etymology of why Gurdjieff's using these words. I hadn't looked them ones up beforehand, but I should have perhaps tried to find out what they were, but maybe you have some ideas for that. And these diseases are coming because people are not working on themselves. They're not centered in themselves. They're uncentered, they're unbalanced. So we're having like flus and plagues coming towards us, which is what's been happening. But then he talks about people that are trying to use this to their advantage, whether it's revolutionaries trying to bring an alternative way of life in, whether it's revolutionaries that could be trying to bring in a better way of life. So everybody's got their own ideas of what is a better way of life. And of course, we had the possible attempt of New World Order using the last few years to bring in their agenda. And I highly recommend, if you can get hold of it, though I hear it's now quite rare. Oh no, his name's gone from my head. The leader of the WEF, his little book on this is the time to have a great reset, you know, and we own nothing, but we are happy guy. How can I have forgotten his name? He looks like a Bond villain, but you know who I mean. Anyway, maybe it's better that I don't say his name. You know, these people are going to use these kinds of times to bring in their agenda and run the world in the way they want to. And we have to be aware of the people that are doing it for the benefit of everybody. We're doing it for the benefit of themselves. But at the same time, we can use these times to better ourselves so that we can create the world that we want and live in the world that we want to be in. And at the same time, we should be doing this work so that we're working with the divine source and being part of the harmonic running of the universe, rather than falling into the mechanical ways of this lunatic asylum that we live in, and that New World Order people want us to be caught up in. Thanks to that peculiar inherency of theirs called suggestibility, a lot of that going on in the last few years, which I mentioned before and which had been acquired in their common presences, all the surrounding beings, of course, believed this, as they called it, propaganda of theirs. And I'm going to just jump in there. You know, a lot of people were using the throwing around the word propaganda and the word gaslighting. A lot of that was going on. But by doing the Gurdjieff work and working on ourselves so that we can be more attuned to right vibrations, we can feel when the propaganda is not good for us, when the gaslighting is happening. We can feel that it's wrong, or you know, what's right for us. We can sense it because we should be harmonized and fully centered and balanced in ourselves to know who's trying to pull a fast one on us or pull us into their way of thinking and living in this world. Just continue with this. So where did I get to? Propaganda. And there usually been, in these cases, a quantity of talk about it. Oh, there was so much talk about it during. There was a lot of very interesting talk in 2020, 2021 by people I'd not heard of from before, and obviously started following because I could see that they could see through everything. But I noticed in 22 and 23, a lot of these people were still repeating the same thing, as if they still wanted the same shit show to go on, so they could still moan about it. They weren't progressing to what we should be doing next. You know, though there were people that are doing that, and there are people that are trying to move forward with what we should be doing with ourselves and the world and the peoples of this planet and how to look after this planet. There are a few of them, but many people seem to get stuck in a cycle and was, as Gurdjieff says, enjoys the suffering. Many people enjoyed what was happening in 2020 because it suddenly gave them something to make them feel alive, which was a great shock for them at first. But then they got stuck in a kind of their own mechanical cycle of it going round and round and not finding a way out of it. And I think some of that's still going on now. But I don't listen to them people anymore. Right then, where was I? Right, quantity of talk about it. There was gradually crystallized in each of them the periodically arising factor which actualizes in their common presences that strange and relatively prolonged psychic state, which I should call the loss of sensation of self, in consequence of which, as also usually happens there, they set about destroying everywhere, not only these wonder beds, but also the existence of those beings who use them. There was definitely a loss of sensation of self for many people in the last few years. And many people suddenly realized they wanted to discover who they were, what they were, why they were on this planet, what their purpose was, what their mission was. And those people I was talking about earlier that are stuck in the cycle of continuing the same, going over the same thing of the 2020 and 2021, they're not progressing because they're stuck in that rut, where I do know many people use that to be like a springboard that made them look into themselves and discover who they were and find the sensation of self. Before 2020, many people were just going along mechanically in their lives, and with the wake-up call of 2020, they suddenly decided or realized they needed to find out who they were. And this sensation of self should be something that makes us start wanting to improve ourselves, so that we are doing, like for Gurdjieff people, we're doing the work, preparing ourselves so that we can become more awakened. You know, we're waking up, we're trying to attain full awakenment. Is that a word? full awakeness is what I meant to say. But I know a lot of people of the last few years went on a war path of, right, we need to take down, you know, the people that were throwing all this shit show at us. And I do agree with that. We do need to change the people that are in charge. I am a believer that the people in charge are not necessarily thinking for us, but I feel that's changing over time. There are people that are coming forward that are running for certain, let's say, presidencies or candidacies for running other countries or organizations to try and change it for the better of the people, not just for themselves, for the better of the people and this planet. So there does seem to be something happening, a shift in consciousness, let's say, which is what I was trying to tell everyone. We need to change consciousness. We need to send out to these people that were disrupting everything a thought form of awaken to their conscience and to awaken their consciousness, so that they are not, well, maybe I should say it in a more positive way. If they awaken to their conscience, they might start thinking about what they're doing, feeling what they are, you know, what they're doing in their heart and in their solar plexus, and be able to then do something physically using an awakened conscience. And conscience is, as I've said before, I believe the connection to the divine. It's the people that are not awake to their conscience or have no conscience for other people that are going to be the disruptive forces and stop the evolvement of the planet. But I've also noticed a lot of people on the alternative scene or who are very new to it, and I can understand why, are very angry about what has happened in the last few years and are still looking for a battle, a war. You know, we're programmed with too many movies of the good guy always wins. It's not necessarily going to be like that. Instead, we need to work on ourselves, develop ourselves so that we can then go forward with an impartial, more understanding and a full conscience understanding of how to help other people and the planet. Although the acute stage of this, so to say, obtuseness in the presence of most of the ordinary beings of that period soon passed, nevertheless, the raging destruction of both those beds themselves and the beings who used them continued by momentum during several terrestrial years. Eventually, this maleficent invention went completely out of use, and soon it was even forgotten that such beds had ever existed on the planet. At any rate, it can be said with certainty that if the civilization of the beings of the group now breeding on the continent of America develops in its present spirit and at its present rate, then they also will unquestionably civilize themselves to the degree of having bed couches as astonishing as were those beds. If you wish to enjoy felicity, then enjoy it with a bang. But that's from Beelzebub's Tales to his grandson, from the chapter Beelzebub in America. It's a super duper long chapter, as all the chapters are very important in Beelzebub's Tales, or All and Everything, as we all know it to be. An impartial criticism of the life of humanity, and which I highly recommend for everyone. And I'm just trying to put forward what I can fathom from it. What, you know, the whole point of Gurdjieff's All and Everything is fathoming the gist. And the reason I did this book, this story today, was because, as I said, I was going through my notebooks and found the word slug in ancient times meant lazy people. So let's not be lazy people. Let's not be slugs. Let's be true, fully centered, conscious, and using our conscience human beings. Thank you for watching. Till next time.